Hello, good day. I'm Kay Matchlot. I'm the founder and producing director of Media Art Exploration, MAX, we like to be called, and we produce and present live arts around the scientific and technological innovations and their impact on our lives. So we're really thankful for your joining us today. And our DNA is live presentations, but we've been able to adapt to these times. So we have been able to create and curate programming that's designed to come to you virtually. So thank you for coming on today. And once the world reopens, though, we will go live again, and we invite you to come to those live performances. We will MAX 2021, the Neuroverse will be our next festival, and it will be focused on neuroscience and AI. We tend to focus on scientific missions like artificial intelligence, how it affects the society. And hopefully we will make you laugh, we will make you think, we will make you ponder, and hopefully feel a little more connected to all these changes. So join us in live, but come back virtually this winter. We'll be doing a Meeting of Minds series. This is kind of our launching pad for Meeting of Minds today. So come back for the I in AI in the winter, a 3-part series. And we thank the Simons Foundation for the funding for that series. Today, we're going to talk about Read Subtitles Aloud, this really wonderful web series we've produced and presented on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't experienced Read Subtitles Aloud, please go on and do. And I highly recommend the episodes 9 through 13, because you'll be able to talk to the inner voice, which is, we always really are trying to reach our inner voice. So you get this chance to do that, and you will have what I think will probably be your first Zoom dream on one of those episodes. So tune in to Read Subtitles Aloud. So today we're going to be talking about that and how it reflects and how it maybe transforms our virtual selves, and talk about our virtual selves in a deeper way. And to do that today, we are joined by a wonderful group of people. Onur Karaoglu and Kathryn Hamilton, the artists behind. Here they are, abracadabra Zoom, they're joining me, yeah. Onur and Kathryn, the artists behind Read Subtitles Aloud, and Jessica Lee, a cyber law specialist, is joining us, and she's thought deeply about our virtual selves and how society and its laws are helping us deal with those selves, or possibly helping those selves fray, and how society might catch up with our virtual selves. So this conversation will be guided by media artist Ashley Lewis, a young woman whose breadth of thought and depth of reflection awes me. So I am really delighted to have all of them here today. And I'm really thankful again to the audience for their time. And I really want you to keep following our website and be in touch with us. And because we're really forming a community around artists and scientists and humanists reflecting on these changes, and so that we can kind of catch up with them and feel more empowered. So I turn it over to my wonderful group of people, and I am going to do some Zoom magic, and abracadabra, go away.
Thank you, Kay, for that beautiful introduction. I'm Ashley. Really, really nice to virtually meet you. I'm joined by this incredible group of people who Kay just briefly introduced. And I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have today, because I feel pretty confident in saying that the work that we're discussing is unlike any I've ever experienced before. So Read Subtitles Aloud is a performance hybrid video art experience. And I really feel as though you have to try it to believe what I'm saying when I tell you that it is both intimate and, perplexing and challenging and confusing at times, and takes you on a roller coaster of an experience as you play a character inside of this plot. And your lines are the subtitles. And not only that, you have to read the subtitles aloud. And so as you are going through this experience, you are watching the plot unfold in front of your eyes by listening to the words coming from your very own mouth, and the landscape of which our two artists have designed this experience is just really spectacular. But instead of spoiling a whole bunch of what it might feel like to experience it, I want to play for you a clip. But the catch is that if I'm going to play this 1.5-minute clip for you, you have to promise the artists, because they're here, that you will be reading the subtitles out loud. So wherever you are, I don't know if you're probably in your homes because we're all in quarantine, but if you're in your car or I don't know, at the bus stop or wherever you might be zooming in from, you have to read these subtitles out loud in a way that you can hear and audibly participate with yourself and this video series. So I'm going to share my screen and we are going to just catch 1.5 minutes worth of this experience.
Who do I remind you of right now? Even though you love them. Still, you are just thinking about yourself. Maybe if you don't want something enough, you won't try hard enough. As much as they can be. Something to do with proximity. I'm close to the screen now. How far are you from me? Have you ever kissed the screen, by the way? I'm talking about digital kisses, yeah. Is digital kissing possible? That's the subject of this video. Digitally kissing doesn't make me feel anything or think of anything. Yes, but yes. No, you don't have to kiss me right now. But if you want, you can. If you feel something, kiss. Don't kiss if you don't feel anything. So the rule about kissing is don't kiss if you don't feel anything.
It there, just as it was getting good, you can see the next line that you were meant to read. So I'm trusting you that you all read that out loud. So we've had just like a mini dose. It starts pretty intensely. So it gives you a good sense of what it might be like to finish the series, which I, of course, really recommend that you do. So before I get into, because I feel like I can get carried away with how exciting it is to participate in something like this, I want to just let us hear a little bit more about the background of the artists who created this, and of course our other special guest, Jessica Lee. So maybe we'll start with Onur, because we just saw your face on the screen. Kate introduced you briefly, but if you wanted to give any additional background, we'd love to hear it.
Thank you. Actually, it was difficult for me to, I didn't read the subtitle. You were seeing me probably on the side of the screen, and Kathryn was reading it, because I was talking to myself. While we were making it, of course, in the editing, you have to check everything, if it is working properly. I was talking to myself, reading subtitles to myself, but it is kind of a difficult task to talk to yourself on the screen by reading the subtitles. Actually, the series are coming from, from the first time of lockdown when we had it in Turkey. Kathryn and I are working together, have been working together for so long. And what I'm trying to say, there's a Turkish version of the Read Subtitles Aloud, which came out last May in Turkey, actually. It was done in Turkish in the first place. And it happened when we had the lockdown and we were at our homes, and we have curfew in Turkey. I'm in Istanbul the weekends, and in the night times we don't go out. So you are trying to keep your sanity somehow, and you need to talk to someone. I live alone in the house, and everybody is talking to by themselves at home at this time, I know. And like this is an advanced form of like accompanying someone to yourself. Like it came from that actually situation. Like I need to talk to someone, and like the first like initial like version of Turkish series came from that. And actually I would say that too, like before like Kathryn adds more information, in the Turkish version we didn't have a script in the first place. Kathryn and I are both theater and performance makers, and I don't know if Kathryn does that too, but I call myself as an artist now. I don't make only theater or performance, but this work is like in between video, performance, or like other forms you can assign to it, maybe. But like in the first place, we called it video dialogue series, not web series. It's like, it's a dialogue between you and the video, and you are performing it. So what I was trying to say, we didn't have a text written before the episodes in the Turkish version. I was like, I initiated it in this way. I was like opening up my computer, and I was like recording myself saying like improvising things without knowing what I was really saying. I was just like saying things and having some pauses in between those lines. And then in the editing, I was writing subtitles to what I said. And it came from that kind of improvisation, because like I needed to speak. I needed to like interact with something. I mean, it was myself in the first place. I was like just opening up like this, the camera on my computer, and I was like talking to myself and having pauses and saying like strange things. Some of them actually we used in the Turkish version, because like Turkish version is similar to the American version. We have different characters. There's a central story, and it is unfolding throughout the like episodes. But like it came from that need, that I mean, like the situation that we had now. Like I was like talking to myself by looking at the camera, and I was like inventing subtitles without knowing what I was really saying at that time. Then, I mean, we switched to the American version, and we made it with Kathryn, and like we wrote and directed it together. But we had a script in the American version, right, Kathryn? I give it to you.
I love all that background information, because I think it really helps us contextualize what you are feeling in juxtaposition to what we feel when we experience it. And now that we've seen the piece and had this background info, just to remind the audience who we're talking to, Onur works between performance, art, and theater. And Kathryn, if you wanted to just remind us, based on Kay's description, where you're coming from and your relationship to the work.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming to listen to us. I am also a theatre director, make things in other forms as well, especially now because there is no theatre. And as Onur said, we've worked together for years, often on work that either doesn't involve performers or places the audience member somehow in the center of an environment, or we made a lot of work that used text somehow with the audience having to interact with it. Performative spaces, I guess, performative situations. I also am interested. I also make work with kind of microbiology. So the Max, I've worked with Max before on a project with actors crossed with bacteria and jellyfish. So it's really nice to be back working with Max again. Yeah, and then as Onur said, we began working together, adapting the Turkish series into something, into this series that you can see now.
Incredible. Thank you, Kathryn. And just for anybody who's already dying to dive in, you can find the direct link to Read Subtitles Aloud on the Max website and in the chat. And last but not least, this is an incredible, pairing with this conversation. We have Jessica Lee, who's an attorney and also a specialist in a variety of different new form technologies. An incredible opportunity to chat with Jessica and talk about this digital experience and commentary on the way that we're living our lives right now. Jessica, did you want to introduce yourself any further?
Sure. No, that pretty much covers it. I co-chair our privacy, security, and data innovations practice at my law firm, heavy on the data innovations because our clients tend to use data for a lot of innovative purposes. Kay mentioned AI before, so we have clients who are experimenting with AI and machine learning. Back in the day, it was like social media was the thing that was new and exciting, but they're always trying to innovate, often using data, which often brings up issues of privacy and what's the line between kind of privacy and innovation? How do you balance those two things? So a lot of what I do is advise clients on how to maintain that balance. So I found this to be particularly interesting because, you create these platforms and you give an opportunity for people to connect. And often you don't think about some of the negative consequences, the unintended consequences that come from when you create these platforms and provide this forum. And I thought this was a great opportunity to kind of dig into some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm really glad that you're here because it lets me sort of gush about what it was like to experience it with somebody else, because Jessica and I have both watched it in out of interest and also in preparation for this opportunity and discussion. So we'll pause on Kathryn and Onur, and Jessica and I are going to talk about what it's like to experience this work. And I don't know about you, Jessica, but I'm so torn because I loved it so much, but I also hated the character that I played. I hated them. And I feel like it was hard to confess that to Onur and Kathryn that I just like, but it was the kind of, villainy where you're saying the words and you're just like, oh, I just really did not like what I just said. I really did not like what my character is trying to do here. But everyone loves a villain. You keep watching because you want to participate in it. What did you think? What was the most compelling or notable thing when you experienced it?
Well, I mean, I think it took me a little bit of time to get there because we opened and, you're just reading the lines. And so I think I was reading it probably monotone because I was trying to figure out who am I supposed to be in this experience. And as it goes on, I feel like you go back and forth. And that's some of the issue is like it's hard to figure out what the truth is sometimes, particularly in a digital experience. And so for me, you feel like the villain, but there are times where maybe you weren't the villain, maybe you were the person who was wronged, right? And so it, kind of went back and forth between feeling, am I actually the victim or am I the villain? And I feel like you kind of flipped multiple times throughout the experience.
Yeah, and you bring up something really interesting that you said you were reading it in a monotone voice, right?
Yeah, at the beginning, because I was like, okay, well, I'm just reading right now because I don't know the backstory. So I don't know what kind of inflection to put into the words yet as I try to figure out who is it I'm supposed to be in the experience.
Yeah, because when you start, you think of it as like a YouTube experience where you can passively engage, maybe like glance at it while you wash dishes. And I think that's a quote from you, Jessica, that you were like, I might wash dishes while I watch this, and then realize like, oh no, I have to pay attention to what's going on. But I found this, especially in episode 2, where we meet Kathryn's character for the first time, that I was accidentally reading in a completely incorrect tone. It was like, I was saying things that I thought were meant to be enthusiastic. And then based on Kathryn's reaction, I was like, oh no, I'm supposed to be indignant right now. And I was playing like catch up as I was trying to read these things aloud. And I think it just, got me thinking, and we've talked about this as a group before, about the multiple interpretations of text on screens, right? Yeah, I'll invite Kathryn and Onur, we can take you off pause and invite you in. I mean, to experience text on screen is something we're doing on an ongoing basis, right? Like all the time, even right now in the comments in the chat. And tone of voice and, inflection and intention are things that we always have to be gleaning based on assumptions. And I don't know, what do you think about how this series makes commentary on that?
I think there's something interesting about context. One of the things I find really disorienting with social media is not knowing like who you're speaking to, whether that's like image-based like Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever, like not knowing who you're speaking to and where they are and what they're doing and how they'll receive what you're saying, and not being able to take social cues back from them. And so one of the things when I watched the Turkish version that I found so interesting about this was the fact that it's interactive, but it doesn't make any attempt to meet the audience actually like where they are. It just exists as a little capsule, and you have to try and figure out who you're supposed to be in relationship to it. And and whether your words are having any impact on that other person. And sometimes you start to believe that they actually are, and you feel like you're in a conversation, and then you have these strange moments of disconnection where you realize that you have no control and you have no agency inside of this world.
Right.
Yeah,
also,
I thought that was very true. So, sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, on that note, I would like to say as well, like, I mean, in this like dimension, there are certain things we can like use, like, I mean, in terms of like communication, like what is useful, what is important that we can transmit through this interaction, and that is limited. Like certain things cannot be done through this platform. And like, you know, like what you won't talk about, what you won't mention, what you won't like out. I mean, certain things are like not working here. We know that, and everything is like somehow like based on what can be like important, what can be useful, what can be like efficient under these circumstances.
Yeah. I was going to say, you don't often get to have that experience where you have both the text and the visual reaction, right? Because usually we just have text and then you have to read in the visual reaction, or you might get visual like we have now, but here you had both, which is how sometimes I think you had maybe a jarring experience of saying something and then getting a reaction that was totally different than maybe what you thought you were going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Kathryn. Go ahead. Yeah.
How does context play in legally? I'm really curious. Is that a framework that you think about inside of these things?
Oh, of course. Yeah. So, I mean, when you're looking at any of these issues from a legal perspective, you have to think about the context, and the context will sometimes help kind of inform your legal argument, kind of depending on what you're trying to do. And, you know, this area has always been interesting for me because it's changing now, but we were in a space where there were no laws to address this technology, or there were old laws that you were applying that addressed technology that didn't exist at the time that the law was made. And so the law is always playing catch up. So you have to think about the context and think, well, based off the original intent, is this what is supposed to happen here? Or is it supposed to be very different? Which makes kind of the area challenging, but gives you some room to be a little bit more creative.
Right. I mean, I love that you're using the word creative in this way. I feel like law in general, I'm so in awe of. I'm just like, it must be so systematic, and I guess it is. But I love that you're framing it as something we have to look at from a specific creative social lens. And I guess we've seen a lot of examples in the last year, at least, of text threads that have gone awry and been misinterpreted in lots of different ways, and become complicit with things that maybe they had connection to, maybe there was context for, but not necessarily. And I guess, Jessica, like, where do you see some of these laws moving forward? Like, how do you think they're going to adapt to try and catch up to what we're looking at right now?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's hard to predict, and I think, obviously we won't do politics here, but it depends on kind of who's leading the ship, particularly in the US, because I think, in the past couple of months, you've had an effort to really rein in social media and to require more moderation of some of the conversations that have on social media under our current administration. It's not clear that will continue, because I think what ends up happening is you have this tension between like privacy and the First Amendment, right? So we want to have these platforms and we want to, allow people to speak their voice. But how do you moderate some of the consequences that come out from that? And it's not clear yet that we as a society have landed on where we want things to go, which means that the law will do one of two things. It will do nothing, or it will have an unintended consequence. It'll be written in a way that doesn't really address the full scenario. So I'm hoping that we have some conversations that get us to a place where we can have some moderation and find like that balance, but it's always going to be a kind of a tenuous balance.
Yeah. And as you're saying, the way that we exist online is shifting and changing, and we haven't made as a society concrete decisions as to how we exist online, not at least ubiquitous decisions as to how we exist online. And I think that this series plays into a very interesting conversation with that very topic, right? It spends a lot of time I think internally as a participant, you spend a lot of time thinking about how you are embodying this character. What do they look like? Like, what's their relationship with each one of these new people that we meet along the way? There's this incredible episode where you meet your inner voice, and that threw me for an entire loop because I'm like, this is my inner voice? Who am I? And so I think it really speaks to this constant querying of how we embody our online personas, right? How do we embody the spaces we occupy? And, you know, how that contributes to different layers of intimacy, different layers of relationships. Yeah. Kathryn, jump in. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I just started reading Glitch Feminism. I don't know if anyone else, I can't say anything about it except that I'm really excited to read it for exactly those reasons. Like, it starts there, and I'm curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, I love that book. Incredible book. I think there's a lot of parallels there as well. Maybe Max can have a future conversation with the author and the series, because there's so much, and Jessica, it feels really aligned with your work too. And I guess my question here is, you know, as we embody these different personas online, like how have you, when you were designing this web series and thinking about how these people would be embodied, these characters would be embodied, what was your hope for the different layers of intimacy? What were you hoping that audiences might feel or not feel as they were embodying this character?
Kathryn?
I think one of the things so the very first episode in the Turkish series, really, I don't know, certainly I didn't think that you had intended at that point to make a whole series. When you first sent it to me, it was just like we were sending each other work every Monday, just trying to keep sane in like that initial lockdown. And this video series, just one standalone video, which is almost exactly the same in the American version, was talking to a kind of, it felt like there wasn't really an imposition of who you were in that first episode, apart from the fact that you had this intimate relationship with Onur, or had this intimate relationship with Onur. But there weren't any other indicators of what your personality was or who you were beyond that like connection. And I really love that. And I think in the American series, we tried to find a way to find this balance of giving you as much freedom to kind of be who you were, and slowly adding these layers of your personality as the piece went on. So you kind of accumulate, you got to live inside the character, and then these pieces accumulated around you and kind of hemmed you in, so that by the end you were this very defined person who'd done these things and been involved in this way with all of these people. But what we tried to do was have it kind of like crush you slowly so you didn't notice.
Yeah. That's the promotion to go watch this.
Right. Yeah, it crushes you slowly so you don't notice. Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
go ahead.
That's that's something like in my mind, like I was like comparing Turkish and American versions to each other, and in Turkish version, the audience character is not defined as much as the American version. Like in Turkish version, X is like we don't know at the end who that person really is, but in the American version, we wrote a big backstory to it. Like where we know where they are coming from and where they are going to, and like that is like so much established through the episodes. We realize, as Kathryn says, who we are like more and more throughout the series. And I was like questioning, like, if that ambiguity is better for like to embody that persona in, for the audience, because like you are like going through your free will to read those subtitles. Because like I hear you that you dislike this experience of like being X, and I'm suspecting now, like, did we give too much to you to like invest in this persona, so like you went too far beyond yourself somehow? That's a question actually. I think like we like more ambiguous things as a digital persona rather than like concretely knowing like what is this and like what am I doing. If you're like in between something, then your probability of like liking it is higher, feels to me.
And
yeah,
yeah,
that's interesting.
I think there's something very interesting about your personality, like the fact that personality gets defined only through these relationships by other people, and you don't have any control over who you are, but all of these tiny little interactions slowly hem you in and create who you are. I think that is how character is created online in some ways.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you. I feel like and we talk a lot about echo chambers and silos, and maybe those have relationships to this conversation as well, but absolutely like your relational experience to people who you haven't met, and these things adapt the avatar that we are when we're online. We're an avatar when we are on Twitter, when we're on Instagram, even things where we're showing our face and on video quite often. YouTubers, I'm thinking of maybe the most, we're embodying an avatar that's created and kind of sculpted based on our relational experiences. And I think that that's, very likable or very dislikable in some settings. I don't know, Jessica, have you felt like an avatar in any of these spaces? I know this is something I think about all the time.
Yeah, of course. Well, I feel like they're very carefully curated, even if you're not a professional YouTuber, like I'm a lawyer. I'm not a social media personality, but I do have a presence on social media. And I think about, what does the picture look like? What does the context look like? I picked up, because a couple of times X references being called an Instagram activist, right? And I think you see a lot of that, particularly of late. How are you projecting your values out to society based on what you're posting, the subject matter of what you're posting, or where you're taking a picture? And I probably should not admit this, but I think it was maybe a year or two ago, I got to a protest late, but I still took the picture. So the picture was up, right? And I mean, I was there, I was in support, but I thought about it later, is this a fraud that I'm at the tail end of the march, but I still have the image out there because I'm trying to, send the message that this is something I care about, or this is a person that I am. All right. And that's just one small example. I'm sure you see a lot of other. I've actually really enjoyed during this time people who have taken pictures of what their real surroundings look like. There was someone who took a picture. She was on the news, right? And so she's got a blouse on. So from here up, looks very professional. And she took a picture out, and she's in her underwear surrounded by toys. She's in her house, and she's got a board on top of a table, and that's how she's stabilizing the camera. So when we take the curtain back and see what's actually going on, I mean, we all do this level of kind of curation, I think, on social media, even when that's not who we are full time.
Yeah. I feel like we could talk forever, and I just want to note that we're almost at question and answer time. So if you have a question that you're dying to ask, if you have a question you want us to read in our assumed tone of voice, I'm half kidding, please put it into the chat and we'll get to it. We're almost there. I love the confrontational way that you declared this as a possible fraud, like a fraudulent behavior. It's very, very confrontational. And I think very self-reflective in a very honest way, maybe. And I think that there's so many moments in this web series, in this performance series, that puts into question what's real and who's acting in a real way, who's behaving in a way that's transparent. There are even moments in this series, and I feel like I'm giving away all these spoilers, but there are even moments in these series where there are characters who are eavesdropping, yourself included, ourselves as the main lead character included, eavesdropping on other Zoom calls, and it puts into question these levels of truth and transparency and possible digital betrayal. And I think that it left me questioning a lot of what is right and what is wrong, what's fair as we participate in social conversations online.
Just before this, Onur and I were talking about the fact that the digital is the ideal form for betrayal.
Yeah.
Because betrayal necessitates, being unseen or being subterfuge or behind people's backs. And so when you're not actually encountering people face to face, I don't know, I think that the digital invites betrayal.
Have any of you read The Circle? Or there was a movie, but I think the book was supposed to be better. But it's about it's a Google-like company, but it's about this company that's trying to complete the full circle of who you are and get to a place of complete transparency. So it starts with just answering questions, then it moves to everyone wearing cameras. Some people wear cameras, and the goal is that that it's a secret to not be secrets are lies, essentially. So everything should be transparent, everything should be exposed and out in the open. And it really ends up with some terrifying impacts at the end. So I highly recommend it, particularly in the context of this conversation. But it's this idea of how much transparency is good transparency, and then how does that end up getting manipulated? Because again, going back to that line between, do we want some things to remain private? If we do, does that create space where you can have some element of betrayal because there's something behind the scenes? There's some secret there.
Yeah, I've never read the book, but it reminds me of a science fiction novel by Philip K. Dick. And this novel comes up all the time, and I can never place the title of it. I need to tattoo it on my arm or something, because the amount of times I have to reference it is pretty high. I feel as though we are entering into kind of a space of both mutually the potential to have more agency and also to have quite a lot of our freedoms stripped away. And, even the call that we're in right now and the ways in which Zoom has really catapulted into our lives, it puts into question a lot of what data we're retaining and what's happening with this video recording after this. I'm sure Max will be pretty respectful, but it does put into question quite a lot of things about personal data, personal privacy.
And how much we assume trust in organizations like Max. Hi, Kay. We had a plan at one point to expand, and we may still expand the series and into the world. And one of the things that we were going to do was sue Max. We were going to take the fiction that we had, that X had released all these videos online without our consent. And to start with, Kay was like, that's a fabulous idea. And then came back and was like, hang on. So Jessica, we might need your collaboration.
Yeah, the pseudo lawsuit.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, Kay.
We are betraying ourselves, actually, having this conversation.
Yeah.
We are betraying ourselves.
Right.
Take it to us instead.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many meta conversations that could be had around the elements that this series brings up. And I'm sure there must be questions in the audience. So if you do want a question to be voiced, please post it into the chat. And we're also really interested, as we've just been sharing references, if you have other references that you think are aligned with this, things by other artists or artist engineers or artist scientist collaborations that are being made about digital privacy, AI, neuroscience, any of these things, please post them in the chat too. We'd love to share those references as well.
Or if you have any responses if you've done the series and you have any responses, that would be super interesting too.
Yeah, that would be great. We have one question in the chat for Kathryn. What is the intention around the sexuality of the characters? It seems ambiguous and yet clearly a part of the piece. And it sounds like this might be coming from a person who's participated already. But that's for you, Kathryn.
From someone also called Kathryn with the same spelling.
Maybe it's you. Kathryn is this Kathryn Hamilton is joining in from her phone.
Exactly. I'm just planting questions that we prepared the answers to. No, I think it's to all of us. Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, what do you think?
Actually, what we were trying to do, secretly, we were imagining a soap opera kind of relationships between those characters, and inventing a central story, and in a cheesy way inventing a central story requires some love affairs between, the conflict comes from how these people are were in love sometime and now they are fighting. That's the in the piece, actually, it is referenced that way. If you are gonna make a good work, you have to make it about a love relationship. Then you can add all the political or contextual other things easily. Then people will really love it and have an empathy for it, then you can do whatever you want. But like, I don't know, we wanted like to experiment around those soap opera like idea, and it requires like some sexuality. But like, I mean, in this version, like you have to kiss the screen and you have to hug the screen, and it's a new form of like digital sexuality. I mean, we didn't know, like, I mean, we didn't know actually, like, I mean, if people, I didn't even think that people would have kissed the screen actually. I was making that episode, like, it didn't even come to my mind, like, but I realized then people were really kissing the screen, and like, they were like giving all sorts of like responses, like feedback on like what is kissing screen feels like. I think that is like a necessity that we don't like, we were playing with people's like weak sides while like investing in sexuality somehow. Yeah. I feel like it's cheating, of course, but like I'm experimenting it too. Like, I mean, with the people I love. I mean, I'm like trying to like sexually to interact with them digitally. I mean, it is my concern now. Like, I mean, I can't stop thinking about it. It doesn't make me like anyway. Yeah.
I feel like it's a very quotidian cyborg sexuality.
Yes.
I really like in the series that there's just an assumption that everyone is in love with everyone. There's also something very true to like small theater companies in that everyone has affairs with everyone because you're just working intensely with those people, traveling with those people all the time. So I know many theater companies that where like the fact that everyone has been having an affair with everyone at some point is what leads to the breakup of the company. So it felt like an honest plot device in that sense. But yeah, a quotidian cyborg sexuality.
Yeah, because we have to reduce ourselves to the edges of this frame, right? There's like really quite a constraint. And what are there, 6 interface options in Zoom? So it's definitely a compression and like a fusion with the digital devices that we have in a way to hold romantic relationships online. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jessica, did you kiss the screen? Did you?
I did not, but I need to clean my screen, and so that is why. And I'm very practical, so I was just like, well, I will come close, but you know, I thought it did show the limitations, right? I think we have a lot of conversation about how these platforms have helped bridge all these connections, right? We're having this conversation, you know, across continents, which we might not have been able to do before, which is amazing. But then there's a limit, right, to how much, you know, intimacy can be created in this like digital experience.
Yeah, I also did not kiss the screen. I considered it. There were people walking back and forth behind me as I was participating in this. So I feel like the context of like this, like everything back here is also something we don't really think about contributing to our experiences in this way, right? There's a little discussion about it online in terms of like work culture, but in terms of like relationship culture and intimacy culture, there is not a lot of discussion given to like all of what's happening like out of these little edges of this Zoom window, all of the like emotions that we've had just before joining and all of the obligations we have as we leave, you know, just as that context affects our in-person relationships, surely it would affect our cyborg, you know, relationships here in the intimacy world of digital platforms, right?
Time difference as well. I mean, it's something we play with in the piece because everyone's on a different continent. So you'll see, like, we were very particular about when it was day, when it was night because of the time differences. But Onur says in that episode, I couldn't do this if it was day, if there was light coming in. And I have an episode where I hug the screen and talk about the digital warmth of it and ask the audience to like hug their screen too. And like filming that late at night, there is something actually really tender about like feeling the warmth of your computer and imagining it's another person.
Yeah, try it at home.
Yeah. Episode 5, everyone.
Yeah.
7.
There's another question in the chat that we should talk about because it's an interesting one. Alan Yu, based on the audience, what part of the specificity for the American version versus the Turkish version was a cultural decision for the audience or based on the audience? So was that when you divided these two, like intentions and executions, was it because the audiences in the Turkish version are different than this American version?
Yes, I mean, as an audience who's watching the series, I mean, we imagined like different reasonings. Like somehow I was telling you in Turkish version, like it is more universal, I would say, because like there's more ambiguity. I mean, if it was in English, that could be like easier, maybe like to interact with that person or like embody that person's like position. But in the American version, like there are lots of references to, right, Kathryn? We have like they are like referencing the location, institutions. What else? Like there is like unmentioned MacArthur award-winning. You are an award-winning actually person.
But there's also a tension between the fact that half of the cast or part of the cast are in Turkey and part are in America, and there's a tension between the American side and the Turkish side. And it is assumed, I mean, that's like X is definitely an American, and X has the power of an American in the context of the piece. Yeah.
Actually, Kay and Deniz also guided us, like as we were writing the script,
And Emily.
To have that references to Turkish, being in Turkey and like having the language Turkish, and that Kay especially is like very happy that it's a spoiler, but like we have an episode that you are hearing Turkish speaking to you and you are reading the subtitles in English. I won't say which episode it is, but so it was kind of like language is like working differently, like because like my background is here and like how I'm involving in this process and like in this story actually is very specific to like cross-cultural context that is like changing, that is like different from the Turkish version, like very much. It is like I'm saying like I was like doing something really ambiguous in the Turkish version, I feel like now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, Jessica, you're an American. I'm a Canadian living in the US. And I wonder, like, did you feel American as the main character in this plot? Did you feel like you were of your own country as you were playing this main character?
Oh, definitely, particularly as it went on and you got some of the references and you see that we're, well, I don't want to say too much, but you're, you know, where I know where we are and kind of, I know more of the context, it becomes more American, I think. So I think I can see some of the references or some of the associations being put on X as an American, and which made it more real as time went on. I think that's how I kind of came into understanding who I was supposed to be playing, because as you get more facts and more interactions with people, you're put into a very kind of Americanized bucket.
Yeah, villainy is American, right?
I know. I was trying not to say that, but it's true. It's like the American villain. You're the backstabber. You're the corporate shill. I mean, that was a little bit of what I got from that.
I want to say this actually, like in the Turkish version, in the American version too, like I most sympathize with the character X we call audience actually. I like that. I mean, I hate my character as Onur, but I love the audience, the X. I mean, I think they are not villain to me, at least.
So funny. Yeah, I mean, it's yet to be seen. We want to know if you, as the audience here, when you are the audience as X, who you sympathize with the most. Because yes, Onur and I have been in like this oil and water conversation about likability for this main character or not. I just did not like them, but I loved them because I did not like them. You know.
Can I say something about that? Like the reason that like I'm like I so much love the X, the audience, because it is empowered the most. Like we are in a way, like I mean in theater or like live performance, like the audience is so passive and like not like into making things. And here at the end of this like 13 episodes, audience becomes the strongest character in everything. So that is my like excitement on that. Like now the audience is stronger than all the performance elements, and like we are making a revolution as audience.
Yeah,
then,
yeah. No, I completely agree. And it felt very triumphant and victorious, but I also hated who I was.
I like that ambiguity at the end. I like that hopefully you get involved enough in the character that you are celebrating your win, but your win is such a horrible one.
Yeah.
You have to deal with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Jessica, if you, at the end, you're just like really putting so much emphasis into these words, because each one was like a little knife into Onur's character. So it felt great to say, but afterwards I was like, ugh.
Right. You're like,
Yeah.
But I guess it also depends on if you felt that you were the victim at any point, right? Like if you felt like you were the victim at any point throughout this, then maybe you felt a little bit better about your win at the end, as opposed to feeling like you were just the worst of the worst.
Yeah. There's some other great questions in the chat here that are related to what we're talking about. Cesar asks, will the series continue? And if so, will there be new characters involved? Because I guess the audience would love it.
We hope that it will continue, actually. And like there are like some ideas, of course, like the second season should be more complicated than this. And that there is like a big betrayal at the end, so there should be like more betrayal after that. Even, yeah.
Also, we set up a second series because X references all the actors that the others hate. Like, who did we quit for in the end? Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh yeah, Maggie Gyllenhaal and Claire Danes.
If anyone knows any of them and they might be interested in being in the second season, put them in contact.
I hope so. I would love to see. Joan has a two-part question in the chat. How many people have participated to date as audience or readers? And the follow-up question is, how many of those people are actors? Because if they are actors, would they, like Ashley, hate their character? Yeah, I don't know if you have any idea as to who's... YouTube is kind of a funny place, right? Because I wonder how easy it is to track those metrics.
In Turkish version, like it is now like about 10,000 hits. So it's like quite viewership in Turkish version, because it was released like a couple of months ago here. In the American version, it's like around, I don't know, 2,000 maybe at this time. But like, I don't know the background. Like, I mean, in Turkey, like a lot of theater people were like really excited about this idea, because like nobody can do their job now, and that's a new form of like exercising this craft, and that is like suggesting a new way of like making performance. So like people were excited, and like that excitement, like rather than like liking or hating characters, like the form itself was like kind of inspirational. The feedback I get. But am I answering the right question now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about what the audience feels. I guess, yeah. So we answered the question, how many have participated? And then, yeah, I don't know. It's so strange to know if they're actors or how they feel about it. Like, how do you know? So you said that a lot were enthusiastic, but I suppose it's just based on who reaches out or comments, right? It's hard to measure how they might feel.
Yeah, I think in Turkey there was a lot of people were filming themselves performing X and then posting that. So you got all these different interpretations of that character. And we actually we kind of turned that into a competition in the US. So if anyone's interested in doing it, film yourself playing X for 60 seconds in any of the series. And the winner gets to do a special 14th episode online. But I think, I mean, that was I guess maybe that particularly appealed to actors.
That's amazing.
To do that, yeah.
I was thinking watching this that I would love, you know, and when we can go back in person again, if this was available in person where you could see people interacting with it. So the fact that you're already starting to have people film themselves doing it, because that could be the performance in and of itself, right? All the different kind of ways someone expresses themselves as X in real life, I think would be really interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that, especially because I know we talked about how Jessica and I both found ourselves wondering what we looked like and how we held ourselves. And I wonder how that would also manifest if you were able to get recordings of everybody playing X as well. Oh my gosh, how has an hour already passed? This is wild. Thank you so much, everybody, for your beautiful questions. They were really exciting. And I really feel as though we could talk about this forever. I've rewatched it a couple of times and I feel like, though my opinion on X hasn't changed, I feel like the way that I've been able to, continue to have conversations, internal ruminations about technology and digital privacy and like relationships online. And Jessica and I have talked about this, in the last time that we met as well. It's really shifted some personas and the way I act online already. And I think definitely shifted the way that I think about how I act online. And I hope that that's true of a lot of the people who are here who will go on to watch the series. I think that there's an exciting opportunity to participate in the competition, and Max is going to drop those instructions into the chat. So if you are listening and you do want to participate in this experience and join the 14th episode, then you can click the link. I think Marian's about to drop it into the chat. But I do think we have to close here now. Thank you, Jessica, Onur, Kathryn. I really just can't thank you enough for obviously participating in this conversation, but as the creators of the series, like posing us some challenging but compelling and very nuanced opportunities to think about how we exist online. So thank you so much. The series meeting of minds continues later this year and presumably in the future as well. And the next episodes or the next conversations are entitled The I in AI. And I really encourage you to come back if you liked this conversation to hold further conversations about our relationship to technology and in that context, AI. And Max has many digital experiences happening right now, and you can go to their website and learn more about how to participate in them. And when we go back to a normal world, specifically using the word when, not if, when we go back to a normal world, Max also holds in-person experiences too that we would love to see you at. And last but not least, please go try Read Subtitles Aloud. It was so wonderful. And the link was just dropped into the chat. So please go participate. And I'm sure Onur and Kathryn would love to know what you thought about it. And I would love to know if you liked X, because I'm still, this is the hill I'm going to die on. This is the hill I'm going to die on. And thank you, Jessica, for your beautiful insight into how this all folds into the realities of technology right now. Great. I think that's it. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Ashley.
Bye here.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.